Hello everyone, welcome back to the Anxiety Project channel. Today's project, we're talking about the laws of this anxiety boss, the rules up here from this anxiety boss. Yes, this anxiety boss coming from the amygdala, the emotional part of your brain, rules over you, and we just can never feel okay. We're not okay inside. And that's the first thing to acknowledge within you is, I'm not okay. I don't feel okay. My expectations aren't being met. And that filled with anxiety, dread, longing, yearning for something more. So the first rule that you have to understand coming from this anxiety boss is that I'm not okay. I must feel okay. I must feel okay. And this was me battling with generalized anxiety disorder, waking up every morning, checking in on my body, checking in, am I okay today? Am I okay today? Oh, I'm not okay today. Oh my God, I'm overwhelmed. I got to call my doctor. I got to talk to my family. I got to smoke some weed. I got to distract myself. I got to use these external means to make me feel okay because I am not okay inside. And Michael Singer, who I'm a great admirer of, he's a great spiritual teacher, says that there's this voice in the mind that's always yearning or craving for something more. And if we're being met, if everything is comfortable in our lives, everything's working out and all our desires are being met, Dostoevsky, the great author, says in his book Notes from Underground, that we will unconsciously burn it to the ground just so novelty will accumulate in our lives. And this is really interesting because if we have comfort, everything we ever needed, like we're going to unconsciously seek trouble. And that's what we're thinking about. And I noticed in my life that I'm never okay. When am I okay? I'm okay when the mind is calm and relaxed and I'm in the present moment. That's when it's okay. That because the mind is always trying to control everything. When you're driving to work, someone's driving slowly in front of you, the mind is not okay. I got to control this person. This guy needs to meet my expectations. Expectations are not being met. The checklist, the anxiety checklist in your mind is not being checked off. And oh my God, I'm not okay inside. How do we be okay inside? Well, first of all, acknowledging that you're not okay is the first step, but also the second thing is to recognize is that there is this reflexive internal voice that can be strengthened if you choose to strengthen it. The voice in your mind. So you know that voice, if you count to 5 in your head right now, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you hear that voice? Yeah, that's the voice you need to strengthen. You need to talk to yourself in that voice. I use a mantra of wow, to bring me back into the present moment. Wow, look at this moment where I'm talking to you. I'm sharing my thoughts, feelings, emotions, and my wisdom with you guys currently right now. Wow, I'm outside and wow, like life is incredible. Ricky Gervais, the comedian, he says he doesn't need drugs because when he watches a nature documentary, he's just amazed of the beauty of existence. And I have to wonder what's going on in his mind when he's watching that. It's wow. Oh my God, it's incredible how that octopi, does what it does, or the whale or the bird, or Mother Nature's amazing. And it's that internal voice. You need to strengthen that internal voice. That inner voice that's saying, man, this is incredible. Or relax, relax, relax. This is a mantra I learned from Michael Singer. Relax. Because you bring up the energy that's troubling you, because something got in the way of your goal-directed behavior, because if an obstacle pops up, that's immediate negative emotion. Relax, relax. And the mind is so full of what it doesn't want. It's stacked all of this from childhood, remember, because during childhood, you're looking up to your mentors and your role models, your parents, seeing how they react to all these particular situations, and you're programming your mind not knowingly of how to respond to situations. For example, my dad responding to a waiter at a restaurant with aggression and negative emotion when they would do something, that he didn't like, negative emotion, and then you absorb that. Or, you're responding to a situation with somebody because of your parents responding to the situation, and when you were young, and it's like, okay, that's how I should respond. And we build on these things throughout our lives. Okay, when this particular situation occurs, I don't like it when that happens, so I respond in this particular way. But that doesn't need to be the case, because the brain is neuroplastic and it's malleable, that it can change. It doesn't have to run these certain programs. So how do we change these programs? Well, as these situations now unfold for you, you have an opportunity now to respond differently. And by doing how you respond is this: when the situation occurs, when the driver in front of you is driving slowly, you talk to yourself differently. Relax. That's what you tell yourself. Try that mantra. Keep saying it to yourself until the energy, until the negative emotion wells up and then drifts away. You have to keep telling yourself this mantra over and over and over again until the negative energy has lessened in strength. That's what you need to do. It's not rocket science. It really isn't. It's a muscle that needs to be practiced, and it's going to be difficult at first. So relax and let it go. Relax and let it go. And keep telling yourself that. Relax and let it go. It's that internal voice, because we don't have to listen to the mind. The mind is going to continue to tell you what you don't want. It's going to continue to tell you what you don't want. It's never going to be satisfied, but you don't have to listen to it. It's like this 10-year-old voice. It's the 10-year-old voice that accumulated throughout your whole life. I've seen 50-year-old people running these voices and from when they were 10, 12 years old, right? Acting like children, reacting, responding to situations. And I look at them and I think, wow, they have a lot of negative emotion or a lot of stored energy that needs to be resolved. And I don't invest too much of my anger towards them, because I can see how they are. The second law of this anxiety boss is that it wants to avoid whatever makes it not okay. It wants to walk the path of least resistance. It's like when you're about to jump into that cold shower, the mind will do whatever it can not to get into the cold shower, and you'll start to clean up around you. You'll start to brush your teeth, you'll do whatever you can. And the mind is an interesting thing, that when it sees pain or it's confronted by some sort of difficulty, it wants to avoid it as much as possible. But when you bypass that voice by jumping into the cold shower, you're strengthening this reflexive response towards novelty. And when novelty arises throughout the day, you're going to reflexively jump towards the difficulty and the challenges rather than moving away from that. And that's what I discovered in my life, is that this muscle strengthens the more you bypass that, I don't want to do that voice. I don't want to get up right now. And you get up anyways, even though it's difficult. You do it anyways. And this is what hardens the mind. This is what people like David Goggins talk about, is like, you do stuff that you find difficult every single day. You're strengthening this muscle, and you're strengthening this warrior mentality. You're gaining more self-respect for yourself, because we don't have to listen to the mind. The mind is never satisfied. So maybe not listening to it is your best bet moving forward and strengthening this new internal voice. This voice that says, I'm going to go in anyways. I'm not going to listen to you, because I notice my mind will always bring up ridiculous nonsense all the time. It'll be like, oh, I don't want to do that. I'm not satisfied. I'm not okay. Imagining the worst case scenarios consistently. Yeah, it's a noise. It's a mess up there. But you can use your internal voice to strengthen a new muscle that'll help push you, or not push you, but move you towards a better version of yourself. But not just a better version, it'll help you, it'll bring you back into just the present moment, because the mind is always taking you away from the here and now. It's taking you away from the beauty and the peace and the excitement of the current moment. And I love to use the mantra, wow. I've said this before on the show. When I'm in the moment, I notice that how I'm speaking to myself. I'm like, wow, look at this. Look how amazing this is. I think Ricky Gervais said this once in an interview. He said, I don't need drugs or now alcohol. Well, he does do alcohol actually, but he's like, I don't need drugs to find the beauty in existence. When he watches a nature documentary and he sees octopi doing crazy things, or he's watching animals do these magnificent feats, he's like, oh wow, nature is so amazing. And that's how he speaks to himself. And I'm like, yeah, that's how you should speak to yourself. Is, how are you speaking to yourself on a day-to-day basis? I mean, for me, I'm becoming more consciously aware of that internal voice that's keeping me from enjoying what's currently happening. Like, wow, look at existence. Look how amazing things really are. And wow is a great mantra for me. And it hones my attention in towards the amazing reality that is currently unfolding here and now. The third law of this anxiety boss is that it will persist until resolved. Trauma, energy that has been stored forever since you were a child, that lays dormant, that still inhabits a part of your being, needs to be identified and reframed in order to be released. And what does that mean? Well, imagine you're going through something traumatic as a child and it has much negative emotion, right? The amygdala, your anxiety response, is the emotional part of your brain. It holds on to this emotion because it doesn't want you to walk into the same trauma or the same negative emotion, the same pain again. If that makes sense. It doesn't, like, why would you want to walk down into that? It's like going into the forest and stumbling upon a predatory animal, and it traumatizes you, and you hold on to that part of the experience and that situation, so that you don't end up in that particular situation again. You might avoid the forest because of that, right? You might stay in your tribe, your hut, and not venture out into the unknown, because of course what lurks out there is danger. But how do you fortify yourself against that danger? That's the question. Something happened to you when you were young. It caused you a lot of negative emotion. You don't want to revisit that. You repress it. It's staying down there, deep, locked in a drawer. But is it really locked away? There's that energy lurking down there. It's still there. And what Carl Jung says is that what you need the most is found in the place where you least want to look. And that's that memory, that's that trauma, that energy that is stored there. So what do you need to do? You need to revisit that, bring about the negative energy and ride the wave of that negative energy. You might want to cry. You might want to talk about it in detail. You can write it out. You can talk to somebody about that. That's why a lot of people come to me for coaching. They like to talk to me about the certain situations that manifested themselves back when they were younger, that popped up randomly, that caused them a lot of trauma and grief. And then by talking about it, you can then formulate a possible solution to how you can move beyond this and how you can avoid this sort of situation again in the future. And reframing it, which means, how can I look at this as a net benefit for me rather than something that is making me not okay? Wait, how can this make me stronger now as a person? And yeah, what lessons have you learned? Well, I learned that this person who betrayed me, well, I can't trust people. Well, that's not a great way to move forward in your life, by not trusting people, because trust is an act of courage, and you're not manifesting that courage if you're just blocking out this form of trust in your life, right? Just by one particular experience. What can you learn from this particular person? Understanding the psychology behind the person that betrayed you is really important, and also understanding how you yourself wound up in that situation, because maybe there's something that you did that made you manifest that kind of situation. You can be held responsible for a lot of the situations that you wind yourself in, but also sometimes things happen randomly because that's the nature of existence. So understanding, well, how can I use this as a lesson so that I can buttress myself or prepare appropriately for the future, right? And I mean, for me, in my relationship with my ex, one of the things that really healed me from that traumatic experience of that relationship was looking towards myself and saying, well, did I contribute anything to make this situation worse in the past? And that really opened my eyes, because I always blamed her for my misery. I always blamed her for my trauma. But then when I took a step back and I talked to myself and I meditated on it, did I do anything to contribute? Yeah, I did. I was very emotionally unstable. I was using her in many ways to feed desirous impulses, and I wasn't okay internally. I wasn't okay in my life. I didn't have a job that I wanted. I felt lost, and I felt lonely, and I felt this and I felt that, and I was like, wow, I did contribute a lot to that. It wasn't just her, even though she contributed much. She had much anxiety, trauma, and all of this stuff. But looking towards myself and saying, well, how can I learn from this? And is there things that I can do better in the future if I were to wind up in this situation again? So there's lots there, but I'll leave a link below to more information about trauma, because I have other videos and podcasts about trauma that I highly advise you to watch and listen, because trauma plays a big part, because there's that energy down there that is still dormant. It's still lurking there. It's still causing grief. And we don't realize this until we actually voluntarily go down into the depths of our unconscious being and pull up the things that have disturbed us when we were young, that made us feel not okay, and acknowledging that, and then resolving that, looking at it from a different perspective. And that's being courageous. You're building on the bravery of your being when you do that. You're becoming the person that seeks out novelty, that seeks out difficulty. And that's where I'm going to leave you today on this video. Thank you, everybody. Please leave your comments below if this resonated with you. Please share this with someone you know who is struggling, who is battling with their mind, their anxiety. Rise above anxiety. I'll see you next time. Make sure you hit that subscribe button and that bell so that whenever a new video of mine appears, you will be one of the first to know. Namaste.